a warm welcome to this exclusive event. We are today charting new territories, looking at update of the EU industrial strategy. So it is exclusive from that perspective. You all participating, you have an important voice. And I'm really looking now also to your engagement and to you participating in our debate and discussion today. We're going to do that in two different ways. We're going to have polls during the session, and we're also going to have a Q&A at the very end. So again, feel warm welcome to participate. This is truly a European event. We have participants and audience today from 22 countries. I'm talking to you from Stockholm. And in Stockholm, we have a lot of snow and winter at the moment, ice and things like that. And it makes us go and do Christmas cracker type of kind of puns, as for example, what is it called when a snowman has a temper tantrum? It's called a meltdown. So funny puns like that we do, bad snow jokes. I would like to start thanking Orgalim for inviting me to host this particular seminar. I would like to also thank the speakers for taking the time today to join us. And I would, of course, most of all, like to thank you, the audience, for joining us today. My name is Jenny Gardner. I work for Saab, which is a Swedish-based defense and security company. We work with a lot of different products and services. One of our flagship products is the fighter jet Gripen that you see just behind me on the picture. We also manufacture submarines and corvettes, stellar radar solutions, and much more. I'm head of strategy for something called Combat Systems and C4I Solutions. C4I stands for Command Control, Computers, Communication, and Intelligence, and it's really about using information technology to run military mission. You could say it's the nervous system that enables and drivers of the military. I work in all domains. I work with land, on water, underwater, in air and space. And we are a true kind of high-tech company and in advanced manufacturing. So I think this is a very hot topic for us that we're going to discuss today. However, I'm not here representing my company at the moment. I am here to be moderating this event. I'm very keen on facilitating different views, different policy views, and also to get the industry perspective. So, giving a little bit of a backdrop to today, to set the scene, so to speak. I mentioned the EU Industrial Strategy, and that was a document published in March last year. And in that document, it talks about how industry is so important, really, for Europe, that 20% of EU's economy is really stemming from industry, that at least 35 million people are employed in industry, and considering that many more people are depending on industry, it's kind of very many more people in supply chains, etc., that are dependent on industry. 80% of all EU goods being exported are industry goods, and considering, this was a number I didn't know from before, that 99% of all the firms in Europe, in the EU, are SMEs, and many of them in industry, is of course very important also from a both social and economic standpoint. So that's really the backdrop. Industry is important. And in March 2020, as I mentioned, the Commission released an EU industrial strategy that was aiming mainly at 2 points. One, to achieve climate neutrality, and another one to achieve digital leadership. But it was also aiming to make EU industry more competitive and strengthen Europe in general. A couple of the examples with this strategy that was suggested was improving skills in education, social innovation, work with regional transformation via different financial funds, digital transformation, energy and resource efficient technologies to work more with those, and for example also providing a more standard setting to underpin this strategy. It was also an industrial forum that was instituted as an open mechanism to take in consultation from key stakeholders and from industry. But that was in March 2020, and quite a lot have happened since. Especially the COVID pandemic has, of course, been disastrous in many ways. People have been suffering, and it's also had an economic kind of effect. But also, we've seen diverging views on the multilateral trading order, and several of these things has really been underpinning the idea that the EU industrial strategy needs to be updated. And that's really where we are today. We're looking to update the EU industrial strategy. And it's supposed to then, of course, create a better and quicker crisis recovery, maybe help with industrial transformation, create more resilience, and much more. So that's really the backdrop to what we're going to discuss today. I also wanted to mention, if we go to the next page, please, that this particular kind of event today is really both it's under the umbrella, you could say, of the EU Industry Week, an initiative by the European Commission to discuss subjects like this. But it's also part of Orgalim's series called European Strategy in Focus. So if you do like this seminar, there will be several more, and we have several recorded. So I think that's just really important to know. Next page, please. So I think what is really a delight here today is that this is the panel we're bringing with us into the discussion. We have both perspective here from policy as well as from industry. So this is the distinguished speakers list of today, and we will kind of introduce everyone properly as we go. So if you could go to next page, please. As I really would like now also to just cite you on the program today. We are going to start, this is the introduction, of course, and then we're going to have two keynote speeches, which will be followed by two use cases. And then we are going to end with a panel discussion where there will also be opportunities for Q&A. Meanwhile, we will also do polls to ask you what you think. So that is, I think, the perfect transition perhaps into the next page, because that is really the first poll. And today we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about global technology leadership and specifically focusing on advanced manufacturing. And these are the questions that I would like you to respond to. What does global technology leadership mean to you? Is it having the most advanced technology, the most sophisticated technology? Is it to have a strong industry? It doesn't need to be most sophisticated, but maybe strong enough to lead. Is it supporting domestic players, or is it to support a kind of open trading system? Or maybe it's another kind of point that you would like to make, or you simply don't know, you're participating here because you want to learn more. So it would be fabulous if you could pick one. I understand that many of you might think that you would like to pick several, perhaps. But if you could just be kind to pick the one that you think is on the top of your list. And we will get the results to you here really quickly. And again, just to say that when you voted, I think that this is topics that we're going to discuss, all of them really today. So hopefully this is going to set the scene partly for the rest of the day, and even we can bring into the debate, so to speak, and get the views. So I think that was the really the poll, and we'll see if we have a result now. I would think I think it will be coming very, very soon, and we can then dive into the rest of the program. because I think what we're going to do next is that we are really going to dive into our program. So here we have our results, and it's the winner. I mean, I think the one that got the most votes was really about having a strong industry to lead the way. And of course, that is a quite complicated but really interesting answer, because strong can be defined in many different ways, and it can be underpinned in many different ways. But you also see that having the most advanced technology got quite a lot of votes, and supporting a global open trading system also got some votes. So I think that was definitely, you could say, the kind of runner-ups in this poll. So thank you so much for participating there. And now I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, the Director General, Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, European Commission, Ms. Kerstin Jorna. Good morning, Kerstin.
Good morning, Jenny, and thank you for setting beautifully the scene. I am very happy about the poll because, in fact, it shows a great alignment between policymaker and industry, at least the participants in this poll, because when we adopted the strategy, the new industrial strategy in 2020, the clear objective was to facilitate European industry's efforts to lead the twin transition to climate neutrality and digital leadership towards increased competitiveness at the global stage. And that, I want to say, is still the purpose of our industrial policy.
But that sounds excellent. That's fantastic. I will now hand over to you.
Thank you very much. So, and we did deliver despite COVID and all the rest. We adopted the white paper on foreign subsidies, which seeks at leveling the playing field in the single market. We adopted the action plan on critical raw materials, and I'll say a word about that later. We adopted a white paper on AI and the framing of it, and we adopted the skills agenda and the pact for skills, because you cannot be strong without the skills and the required that are required. So if you want, we did walk the talk already, but then of course, and Jenny, you put it already, we had COVID. The crisis, and we realized a number of things in that crisis. We realized that the single market was not so easy, was fragile, in fact, because there were, some member states misunderstood the concept of social distancing because they slammed their borders. We had something like almost 40 export restrictions, which created lots of problems because it kept products in countries where they were needed. It really didn't allow cross-border value chains to operate. So that was one learning we had. By now, most of these 40, they've been pulled back, but still, it was an experience. The other thing we learned is, wow, we're dependent. And we had a number of dependencies we weren't really aware of, starting with pharmaceutical active ingredients. That was another message that we got. And then there was, of course, how to best deal with the health crisis, how to be able to protect the European population best. And this started with, masks, protective equipment, ventilators, and then the vaccines, of course. And we saw that we can only work together to achieve these objectives. So we talked to industry, and if there are people in the room who collaborated, thank you very much, to produce masks rather than t-shirts. We talked to car suppliers to produce ventilators for hospitals rather than air conditioning for cars. And in that way, but we could only because we did it together, and there were calls that we placed also for all European countries, like we did with the vaccines, and it allowed for all European countries to participate and get their share and to protect citizens of Europe, European citizens, wherever they were located. So, and that's the reason why we want to do an update of this industry. And update means update. It doesn't mean reinvent the wheel or have a completely new strategy. It really means updating. And updating, I want a number of highlights here. First, the ecosystems. The ecosystems, I can show you my cup, which is with the 14 ecosystems. This is a new lens of looking at the single market economy, because looking only at sectors does not help us to understand the value chains. Looking at value chains does not help us to understand all the things that happen in an ecosystem, the relations between big and small, the relations between, the technology ramp up, the universities, tech transfer, ramping up rollout of technology, the services part that's with it. So we divided into 14 ecosystems, ranging from mobility to tourism to health. And we're trying to understand what's happening there. And we used this lens when we first had to decide how to support the industry in the immediate term, which is liquidity in the first lockdown. And, and how to support also the recovery with the Next Generation Europe program, 750 billion. And that's where the analysis of the ecosystems, which allowed us to understand what was really going on in these ecosystems, and where the value chains broke down, or where certain services could not be provided. That helped us to understand better. And we are now using this. It was a start. So we are building the data sets for these ecosystems to understand better. We are trying to get information also in cooperation with the industry, on a quarterly basis to understand what's happening. And we're using this now to look at the other challenges. One challenge is recovery for sure. And what we see is there is a problem for the equity base. If you want to invest in Europe, you need to get, loans essentially. So you need to have a sufficient capital base. So we're trying to understand where to help here. We are looking at decarbonization needs in the different ecosystems. We're also looking at what efforts have already been sustained. It will provide us with very good insights when we talk about implementation of the climate law, which will require adjustment of a number of legislations towards the summer. And we want to understand, looking at the ecosystems, what's actually the most efficient way to do it. Example, mobility. Is ETS, a broadening of the ETS, the right solution, or is it rather looking at the tailpipe of different transport modes? So this is something we learn through the ecosystems. We are starting to have a cooperation also with the OECD on this concept, and all the data that we're also collecting from you will be incredibly valuable for us. So that's about the lens. Another big work stream in the update is resilience and strategic capacities. What are those, and how do you define it, and what should you do if you find some of these dependencies? We have a clear mandate from the leaders, the European Council, to map these strategic dependencies and to explain what one could do about them. So what we did is, so we are trying to develop the methodology to understand this, and we're mapping now in a bottom-up approach, looking at product categories, possible strategic dependencies, and we're starting with a few of the critical ecosystems, for example, health, or those that are important to drive the digital and green transition, to understand. And we look both from an angle of resilience, so next crisis comes, can we continue to produce, but also from an angle of competitiveness. If we project ourselves into the future, what are the game changers here? Of course, we cannot find that in our offices, even with the best data crunchers. So we need to talk to you as well. And that's the role of the Industrial Forum. I'm very happy that Radha is also a member of this Industrial Forum. The first meeting took place on the 1st of February. And we focused on digital and green transitions, the need for inclusiveness, and the importance of a very strong single market and skills for creating the quality jobs. We will now have to decide how to best get the input and define the work streams. And of course, there was also a focus on the digital. Now, I want to say a word on one of your favorite topic, Orgalim, in my discussions with you in any event I see it, which is about advanced manufacturing. And we see that the twin transition will require a profound transformation of our industry, significant investments, and the creation of new markets. And I want to say that is something we are bringing to the debate because of the ecosystem lens. Policy, I mean, the evidence we can assemble is to have the best policy measures here in support of industry making these transitions. However, it's not enough to only look at the supply side and have certain rules on supply side, which is kind of the traditional way we did. We also need markets for the new products and for the enhanced products. So we need to look at demand and supply on both sides. A key enabler for advanced manufacturing is trustworthy artificial intelligence and robotics, Internet of Things. And we are trying to see from the policy maker end what we could contribute in terms of regulation, in terms of financing of infrastructures, in terms of making it easier for private investment also to come in. For example, the alliances, and also to look at our trade policy. The trade review communication will come out next week. We know we need to invest, and you've told us many times, in technologies and infrastructure, AI, microprocessors. That's a very débat d'actualité, I would say. We see there's a lack of microprocessors globally, but it's hitting certain of our ecosystems in a very particular and heavy way. And I'm looking and thinking in particular of the mobility ecosystem and car producing. So microprocessors, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, big data analytics, high capacity secure networks infrastructures, to name a few, requires a lot of investment. And we are trying to have a discussion with the member states who are all drawing up their recovery plans now and who will benefit from what I mentioned in the beginning, the next generation EU budget, to focus in these areas. Private investment coming in, of course, also means you need to have investor security, certainty. And we believe that we have to work a bit on the legal framework that would give that certainty. For example, our upcoming AI regulation, the revision of the machinery directive, or the product liability directive revision that are in the pipeline for this year. They will help to set the frame for securing investments. And part of the legal framework, without being, adopted by the legislator, is also the standardization system, and that's also one part of the thinking in the update of the strategy, which is to use that. It's going to be instrumental for the transition, the digital transition, and standards are also important for having, a quick adoption of innovation and technologies. If you were to do this all through legislation, it would be much too slow. So we need a dynamic and effective standardization system that is able, and that's, I would say, a little pain point, to focus on what we really need in terms of standards. The output is great, but sometimes it's not focused enough. I hope that through the Industrial Forum, we will be able to have a discussion on that as well. What are the standards really where Europe has to prioritize? And I know standardization is paid by the industry, essentially. So together, how can we focus better here? Then on the international dimension, Jenny, you already mentioned, manufactured goods make more than 2/3 of our exports, and the industrial and trade policies reviews will look into strengthening our positions here. We have 80 free trade agreements with different countries around the world. That's a very strong network, and we need to rely on it. We also need to rely on it increasingly for creating, developing the markets for decarbonized products. So one thing is the EU market, but we also need to create outside markets for such. I want to say a word on the alliances, which is a pretty original way of creating markets at the same time, and it's very European way. We have 3 alliances that are very active at the moment: Hydrogen, Raw Materials Alliance, and soon Industrial Data and Cloud Alliance. It's not just to get together and decide to get more money from the public side. It's really to make sure that we create the markets immediately, which means if you take the hydrogen example, we need electrolyzers. And today people don't invest because they say, well, we don't know who is going to use the hydrogen. So we also need to look at industrial use. And industrial use, there's no investment still, or it's only coming on now, because they say we don't know if we have enough hydrogen, and then we need to store and transport it. All of this is part of the Hydrogen Alliance, and investments will happen in parallel, hopefully, and we're looking for big investment pipelines to be built on this. More than 1,000 companies are actually participating. So I think I'll stop here. Just one word on the industry days. They are super important for us and the industry week. I'm very happy that Orgalim is an active participant in different forms in this. We need the feedback, we need the discussion. We can only manage it together. It's not something, the green and digital transition of the industry, you cannot invent or even roll out in offices in Brussels. So we need you everywhere, from Sweden to Spain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. And I think that's a very good call to engagement here. So this is just in line with what we're doing today. I have a specific question to you about innovation, because when we're talking about an industrial strategy, of course, R&T or R&D innovation are really important pieces to that puzzle. What would you say, from your perspective, what is important with innovation? And when you talk about the industrial strategy, is it something that you would specifically want to highlight there?
Of course, innovation is key. Otherwise, we don't move on. And I know industry is doing a great job. We have the Horizon Europe program that will support and bring together. And there's some innovation even happening within the Commission. Example number 1, we created the European Innovation Council Fund, which is the first venture fund publicly backed at a continental scale. I'm a board member in this fund, and we have great project pipelines. The whole point is to come in with equity, which we haven't done so far. We've come in with grants, we have come in with guarantees, but we haven't gone into companies with equity. But to help equity, be an anchor investor at an early stage when very few people actually think about these companies, be an anchor investor to attract private investment. And I mean, in general, it's for companies that we've already supported by a grant. So to help them grow faster and grow better. Example number 1. Example number 2 is my own little outfit, DG Grow. We are having a reorganization, and we are creating actually 2 units for data analytics, because we believe as policymaker, we need better evidence. And we have such an amount of data through our public databases. We need to be able to understand better and react better with our regulatory tools. So there is innovation everywhere. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for kind of highlighting those particular topics. And I hope that we can come back to the discussion also at the panel debate at the end. So now I would like to go to our, thank you so much, Kirsten Jorna. Now I'd like to go to our second poll for today. So again, for everybody to get ready to be interactive and share your views. So now the question is going to be, we talked before about what is really, strength, you could say, and we were talking about here, I mean, the option, a strong industry was chosen, but this is more about the priority to getting where we want. So to get to global leadership, technology leadership? Is it important then to have a strong framework for investments in R&D? We just discussed that. Is it most important to create a seamless internal market for the digital age? Or is it more most important, because again, many of these, you might think that they are important, but the most important is supporting a global open trade system. Is it strategic autonomy? So strategic autonomy, that's a discussion being had about sovereignty. I mean, basically how self-sufficient Europe should be. There's also discussion around something called open strategic autonomy, which is a combination of being sovereign but still open, so to speak. But anyway, that's kind of self-sufficient type of way of working. Is that what we're looking to do? Or is it another subject? Or maybe, again, you're here to listen, to understand, so you want to answer, I don't know. So please go ahead and give your view, and we'll kind of take a look to see how that looks like. This will just take a second or two. So meanwhile, I might just kind of crack one of those snow jokes again. Do you know how you scare a snowman? Well, you bring out your hairdryer. Yeah, I know, not very good, but at least there's something. So let's take a look and see if you have made your kind of choice, and we can look at the results. So here we see the results, and a strong framework for investments in research and development, I think, got a lot of votes. It got 48% of your votes. So I think that seemed like a really important and good topic that we just discussed, Kirsten, there. Creating a seamless international market for the digital age was number 2 with 24%. Strategic autonomy came in as number 3 on 16%, and then supporting a global trade system and other, I don't know, will kind of left a bit behind. But I think that it kind of brings us really nicely, I think, into the rest of this program too, the thought around innovation. And now I would like to introduce our second keynote speaker, the Orgalim President and Senior Vice President of Schneider Electric, Ms. Radha Rodriguez. Warmly welcome, Radha.
Thank you, Yanni, so much for this introduction and for moderating this special event. Also from my side, a warm welcome to all our distinguished guests and to all the participants. It's a big pleasure for me to talk to this event. As you very well mentioned, this one in our series of events which we dedicate to the industrial strategy, and this one is special because it is done together with the European Commission and it's part of the Industry Week. So let me please start by giving you a brief presentation of what is Orgalim, our association. So please, if we can show the next slide. We are representing the European technology industry, and this industry is comprising of 3 main sectors: the mechanical engineering, the metal technology, and the electrical engineering, electronics, and information and computer technology. And these industries are employing directly over 11 million people. And we know that there are many millions more which are indirectly employed through these 770,000 companies which we represent. Altogether, we have a very big part of the European economy, 2,000 billion euro, and we have 1/3 of the European export. The structure of these sectors is a mix of small mid-sized companies, the most of them, and some big international multinational companies. And this mix helped us historically to have a technological leadership, global leadership. Because on one side, we have the agility, the flexibility of the small mid-sized companies, and put this together with the big resources coming from the big multinational companies, were a real driver of innovation for the sectors. So we have created historically many thousands, tens of thousands of technological leaders, or sometimes they are called regional leaders or even hidden champions. We don't believe they are hidden because they are all global and very visible to us. And the big question which we are posing ourselves is how do we enable the next generation of global industrial leaders? So why is this important? Manufacturing is responsible for creating many jobs. So in Europe, we are talking about around 30 million jobs. As I showed before, 1/3 is in our sectors of the technology industries. And there are estimations showing that for each full-time equivalent in manufacturing, there are another 3.5 full-time equivalent in non-manufacturing sectors. But it's not only job creation, it's even maybe more important is that manufacturing is driving innovation across the entire economy. So just give you an example. The top manufacturing countries in the world, which is China, Germany, Japan, Korea, are standing for around 80% of all business, finance, R&D in their economy. Now, when we come to the technological manufacturing, the technological industry, this is core for the European competitiveness and growth. And it is a true transversal part of our economy, because we are, with our technologies, supporting a wide range of other sectors and of other industries. That's why it is important that Europe recognizes the importance the importance of these technology industries, and are preparing the path to invest for the future in this manufacturing base to enable its continuous transformation. Only through this continuous transformation we will be able to maintain our global leadership position. So how does the future of production look like, and what is important to think about when it comes to the transition period? So we have on one side, and that was also mentioned by Castiglione, the rapidly emerging technologies such as Internet of Things, robotics, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing. These are all development or enabling the development of new product technologies and new business models. So what is advanced manufacturing? I think there are a lot of definitions, and probably everybody has its own definition. But if I go to the European Commission definition, it refers to the use of innovative technology to improve processes and to enable the manufacturing of complex products. In our opinion, there is also another aspect of it. It enables new business models. It's very important to emphasize that today Europe has a leading position when it comes to advanced manufacturing or future of production. According to the World Economic Forum Readiness Index, which is created every year, so the Readiness Index for the future of production, 16 of 25 top countries are European. And you will hear some very nice examples from real-life companies later today. The technological disruption enabled by digitization, but also the progress in all kinds of technologies, are reshaping in a fundamental manner the European manufacturing sector, creating opportunities and, of course, as with any transformation, also risks. So let's focus a little bit on the opportunities. Despite the challenges which are inherent in any transformation of any industry, it has the potential to lead to unprecedented gains in productivity, efficiency, quality, and by this to remain competitive on a global scale. The adoption of technologies on the global scale can dramatically increase the connection and the integration of the global value chains, and by this to unlock new data-driven business models. It's important that Europe builds on its strengths and on the authority we have on a global stage when it comes to a sustainable way of producing. But as I said, there are also some risks. New business models could quickly alter the attractiveness of manufacturing locations, leading to a high concentration of global manufacturing activities in a small number of countries and with a small number of companies. This would give a huge shock in all the other countries where manufacturing activities as a consequence could significantly drop. For Europe specifically, if we want to be successful in the digital and green transformation, we need to ensure that this foundation, the manufacturing industry, is taken in focus and in an adequate way on board as a key focus area. And let me highlight some important aspects on the road toward advanced manufacturing or towards the truly Industry 4.0 model. If we want to compete in the future of production, we need to invest, and that was also said by Castiglione. And we have to invest in a lot of enablers and to embed these enablers in a broader strategy and transition of our production base. This will allow us to develop a unique capabilities that continue to make us attractive as a production destination within the global value chain. At the same time, we need to realize that regarding some enablers, to unlock their full potential, they can't develop in isolation. So our future production systems will need to remain globally connected and requiring the technology, not only technology, but also interoperability, standards and norm. And this was also, I'm very happy that this was also part of the focus in Castiglione's speech early today. Cooperation at European level is very important. So the single market, we have to strengthen the single market and just by that leverage our collective strengths to compete with other regions of the world. Jenny, you mentioned very good in the introduction that the industrial strategy plays a key role. So that's why we also dedicated this series of seminars and webinars to the topic of industrial strategy. You mentioned that we have the paper from 10th of March 2020, but of course we all know that a lot is happening since then. Of course, the Corona crisis, it's very important, and our industries, even if we outperformed in terms of growth before the crisis, we were very much hit by the crisis. We are completely convinced that with the right framework, our companies will be able to rebound fast and maybe faster than other sectors when the crisis is over. So this new reality, as was mentioned several times today, needs to be taken in this update of the industrial strategy, and we are very happy that the Commission takes this step. So what are we looking for in this update? Given its transversal nature, we want to see advanced manufacturing to be reflected in this updated strategy, to be highlighted as its foundation and the foundational importance it has for a wide range of other industries and for the economy as such. I was happily given the opportunity to join the newly created Industrial Forum. We had already the first meeting, and during the next meetings, which will be organized this year, we will continue to promote the creation of a platform to bring stakeholders together around the advanced manufacturing. The goal is to map Europe's strengths and gaps regarding the adoption of advanced manufacturing technologies, to identify joint priorities for investment and for the implementation and definition of the necessary supporting policies. We will, of course, also continue to build on the 2IoT work done in the Strategic Forum. This includes, for instance, the focus on emerging new business models, services, by going over from a product focus to a product plus service focus. We are enabling a resiliency of our companies. This resiliency also in terms of economic downturn, and we think this is very important. Thank you for listening, and I am looking forward for the discussions.
Thank you very much, Radha. And can I just ask you one question before we move on with the program? And that is, we're talking about advanced manufacturing and how we can address social kind of transformation and challenges, really. You know, how can we, I mean, how would you see that we could do that also in new markets? Is there a, you know, a way that we can work with this in a more international fashion?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think I understand the question. Well, I think there is a broad consensus today that climate change and the transformation of the society as a result of the digitization might be the biggest two challenges we are facing as a society. And in the end, I think that one major question is how to keep and develop our assets, in this case, our European assets, to enable continuous value creation. Because this value creation is in the end the base of prosperity, and also for the transformation toward a sustainable society. Now, how advanced manufacturing fits in here? Today, the manufacturing is very much optimized in silos or around functions. Now, by adopting the Industry 4.0 approach or the advanced manufacturing technologies, we are moving from the silo view toward integrated approaches, which is, of course, enabled by data sharing and by data management. This, on one hand, will directly bring us optimization of the resources, which means sustainable production, because we optimize energy, we optimize resources, all type of resources. It gives us the opportunity for new business models, as I said before, which is for us one of the, let's say, most important aspects of long-term resiliency. But also it's changing the way of, it changes the jobs. So services like maintenance, failure prevention, product design, etc. It's transforming, it's bringing the high value jobs and help us keeping these high value jobs in Europe. So it has a lot of society beneficial.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And let's get back to that subject a little bit later here at the panel debate. Thank you again, Radha. That was absolutely brilliant. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, and this time it's an industry speaker. Also just wanted to mention that both of our industry speakers today, Orgalim is publishing articles on each of them and their views that we're discussing today. So go please and join the Orgalim website to look for that. But now we have Mr. Frank Boutard, CEO of Ericsson France. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Jenny, for the introduction, and thank you to give me the time in your great event. If we could move to the next slide, please. Pandemic has shown the need for digitalization for the society, the economy, and industry. If they want to survive, enterprises should accelerate their digital transformation. As regards digitalization, manufacturing is a key area to focus on, as the benefit could be huge in terms of productivity and sustainability using 5G networks at the core. 5G generates use cases inside the plant, but also in the manufacturing ecosystem at large, including transport and logistics. It allows advanced manufacturing and the management of huge amount of data. But what is 5G? 5G basically is the 5th generation of mobile technology, and it has been designed to give a lot of extra benefit compared to 4G, with more data, more throughput, more connected object on terminals, better efficiency in terms of energy consumption, roughly in a ratio of 1 to 10, but especially much lower latency, which is the time it takes for an information to go from point A to point B, and that has significant impact on use cases in some critical industry. Next slide, please. All these industries will be affected by 5G and will be transformed by 5G, linked to the benefit I've been showing before. So I'm not going to go through that, but it will basically replace all cable connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity, PMR technology, and we create completely type of new use cases. So if we focus now on advanced manufacturing, next slide, please. Typically, in a manufacturing plan, 5G will get progressively generalized, and it will have implication on transformation patterns on a lot of the processes within manufacturing, from supply management, from operation in and out, by the way, from operation center, bins and containers, assembly lines, robots, automatic guided vehicle, and as well as inventory management. Next slide, please. If I go to something a bit more concrete, and I take one example, which is the robot that you may have in a manufacturing plant. Today, the robots are basically hooked up on the floor. They have a cable for energy, and then they make one task. The software is in the robot, and then when the robot has finished its job, it's pushing the object to the next robot, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it takes probably 1 year to build a manufacturing plant. It takes 1 year to reconfigure it. Imagine now that the robot is not hooked up on the floor anymore. He has electricity energy, and it's basically have no software in the robot. It's put on the cloud, and then you have 5G technology with low latency to activate the robot, which is becoming a pure mechanical object. Then you will be able to reconfigure a production chains in something like a month, or even later on in something like a week. So you could imagine the same manufacturing plant producing different type of objects during the life of the different manufacturing sites, and even changing the production on a weekly basis. That could horizontalize the complete manufacturing and industry from a vertical approach to an horizontal approach. Let's go with some concrete stuff we are doing in Ericsson. Next slide, please. So for instance, we're working with this type of industry transformation and manufacturing plant transformation with some of the major European industry. I have given you here 3 examples, but there are obviously much more. So for instance, in Germany, we do work with Mercedes-Benz in their car production manufacturing. Initially, they were working mainly on real-time data management by connecting the full manufacturing chain, and then data security. And then progressively, they have been working into connecting the robots using 5G. Their target is to increase productivity by 15% by 2022. And they want as well to work with a zero carbon factory, which means no carbon emission in that factory using 5G on electrical technology. Then we're working as well with ABB, this time in Sweden. Initially, they wanted basically to work with connected the objects in the factory. It looks a bit strange, but they are very expensive objects spread all over the factory that you may lose sometimes, and they need to know where they are. And they wanted as well to connect the workers so that they have a full understanding of the production chain. And they wanted as well to have a single time across the full industry and the full manufacturing plant, and they were using 5G network and its low latency to have one single time across the productions. Their objective is obviously to improve productivity. We have no result yet at this stage, but it's ongoing. We're working too with Atlas Copco, this time in Belgium. Initially, they wanted to work on the worker safety, and then progressively they have connected the full assembly line to shorten the assembly delivery time and better understand and reconfigure their production processes. Next slide, please. I have two other examples, this time on the supply management. So it's good to look at the site by itself, but you need to have very efficient supply management in or out of the manufacturing plant. So we're working with two companies right now on that process. One is Scania, which we work for the platooning of the lorry. What does that mean? It means you have the lorry on a road, and then you connect virtually the lorry with each other using the 5G network. The latency is so low that each of the lorry can be distant from each other by 5 meters. Then only the first driver drives, the rest can just rest on sleep. And then because of the fact they are very close to each other, then you consume 20% less energy in each of the lorry except the first one, obviously. And then we're working on something else as well with a company called Einride, and it's basically automated or electrical transportation trucks. There is no driver. They can be autonomous, or they can be driven far away by 5G. And it means there is no driver. It can work 24 hours a day with no strikes. You can reduce energy consumption by 90%, reduce cost of operation by 60%, and increase productivity by 200%. Next slide, please. When you look at what 5G could give to the overall industry or manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, I just give you 4 numbers. 403 billion objects in manufacturing plant could be connected and become more efficient. The manufacturing plant could be reconfigured in less than 2 months when it was before 1 year. We expect 5 to 25% efficiency gains by implementing 5G at the core of the processes. And because of the resilience of 5G compared to some cable or classical wireless technology, we could reduce dramatically the downtime. And you know that each downtime in manufacturing costs roughly $30,000 per minute. Next, please. So to conclude, I would say that 5G will be a critical open innovation platform to winning the global race for growth and for industry digitalization. It is a must to ensure Europe competitiveness. Europe has a huge potential prize, but risks slipping behind and missing out. It's not by accident that China is currently building up to 15,000 5G antennas per week. And thus, South Korea are more or less complete the full 5G coverage of the country. Their government recognized the centrality of 5G to their long-term industrial strategies and economic successes. The US is currently running hard to catch up with these two countries. By comparison, Europe is still stuck in the starting blocks. Europe should not lag behind on 5G. It has the right telecom industrial champion, but need to speed up its deployment as soon as possible. It was the same story with 4G when the US deployed 4G 2 years ahead of Europe, and then the GAFA did grow dramatically based on their 2-year advantage on 4G technology. We should not do the same mistake on 5G. The cost of inaction is huge. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Frank, for a very comprehensive and good kind of description of 5G and that type of digital infrastructure, what kind of implications they can have. I have a specific question that I will kind of save for our panel debate that just has to do with this particular kind of piece of technology, but again, very interesting. So I would like to go on now to introduce our last speaker, Mr. Maurice Ditterweg, Director of Industrial Automation at Hellebreckers. A warm welcome to you, Maurice. So, Maurice, I'm sorry, but I think I cannot hear you at the moment. So maybe you. Oh, fantastic! Now I hear your voice.
Forgot to press the button. Thanks, Jenny, for having me. Thanks for having me on this online event. It's a great pleasure. It's also a pleasure to go through the insights together with you all regarding advanced manufacturing and advanced technology, and what it means for Europe and its strategic position on a long term. As said, my name is Maurice Ditterweg, and I'm responsible for the Industrial Automation Department within Hellebreckers. I will start by who we are and what we do, and then I will continue and go shortly through what advanced manufacturing means to my opinion and to our opinion, and to continue, I will present certain examples we've been implementing of advanced manufacturing the last couple of years, and to wrap things up, I will share you my opinion about the challenges we face to continue strengthening our position, our competitive position. Slide, please. We are a system integrator. We work worldwide. We execute projects for overall equipment manufacturers and end clients within the food and convenience sector. But to be honest, we feel very comfortable in a very broad product production environment. This April, we exist 50 years, and we have a very broad portfolio representing our wide history, from a local installation company based in the center of the Netherlands up to a international industrial system integrator. We are experts in process control, in process visualization. We designed our own MES software application, allowing production go through the order intake up to the factory floor, completely automated. We've got several robotics and cobotics engineers. We developed multiple augmented reality applications for operators to see directly in front of them while they're walking on the factory floor, production parameters and production information. And we also developing vision toolings in combination with data science, creating algorithms, allowing quality control systems to fully operate automatically. Next slide, please. So what is advanced manufacturing? And I will first start with what it is not. It's not just one single product, and it's not just one single piece of software or software module. It's a movement. It's It's an evolution. It's the industrial revolution. It's not only Industry 4.0 or smart industry, but it's keeping up with the industrial revolution. It's everything between developing the combustion engine up to artificial intelligence and everything in between. It's the deployment of available and affordable techniques to create a sustainable production advantage over your competition. And if you look at today's context, I think we could talk about our competition. It's a combination of integration techniques, latest techniques which are available, which allows us to create a more flexible production floor, which allows us to reduce costs labor-wise or maintenance-wise. It also helps to sustainably deploy our staff and employees, but it also creates a consistent flow of quality output, and so on and so on. But how do we get to this point? And it's all due to the rapid growth of computing power. Computing power is much more affordable and available than 30 to 40 years ago. Computing power makes it possible that the robots move the way they move. Computer power makes it possible that production data and vision data is being translated into algorithms, which directly interfere into the production processes. There are many, many examples of that. But due to the availability and the affordability of computing power, we now have access to affordable techniques, which can strengthen our competitive position. But we only need to start implementing them. Next slide, please. Now I will show you some examples of projects we have been installing lately. And if you can click, for example, on the first left video. I don't think it moves. No, it's not. It's not moving. Oh yeah, it is. That is where we pick up by a robot packs of toasts to be packed into a box. This has been done manually by people. So we're replacing dull work. On the right video, we pick up using vision techniques croutons, which are being placed into ready-to-eat salads. This is also being done by hand. So you can imagine that it's a very dull and labor-intensive work. Advanced manufacturing, advanced technology is allowing us to work with these type of machinery, strengthening our position. If you could give me the next slide, please. Three other examples of vision in combination with data science. These combination of vision and data science are creating a feed to the algorithms we develop. On the left, you see an industrial butcher where the length of a till of livestock is being measured. If the till is too short and it doesn't meet the assumptions, then the system is being informed. This in the past, this was being done by a person or persons. In the middle, you see a insect farm, more in detail, a beetle farm, where we monitor the amount of feed which is being put into the boxes where the beetles live in. AI allows us to monitor the amount of feed and also determines what feed needs to go in. And on the right, you see a cobot in combination with a vision camera, monitoring and controlling the inside of an industrial seal. The camera makes pictures of the seal. The pictures go into the algorithm, and the system is monitoring if the assumptions are right or not. In the past, this was done by one person, monitoring and checking 400,000 seals a year. Now the same person is operating the system, so his work become more interesting for him. But also other people can do it. If you can show me the next slide, please. This is a technique, to my opinion, is fairly underrated. It allows operators to check in line what the parameters are of the production process by using augmented reality. Again, as said, it's a great technique, but heavily underrated. Could you please give me the next slide? To finalize, to my opinion, the challenges we face as Europe, advanced manufacturing needs to be put onto the agenda. We need to start deploying advanced technologies. It needs to be put on the agenda for a long-term competitive position. Otherwise, we fall behind. Maybe Europe could lower the bar for production facilities by, for example, financial aid. To my opinion, the majority of the financial aid goes to developing new techniques instead of integrating new techniques. Connected to that, also the integration of new technologies and the speed of that needs to meet up with the development of advanced technologies, because the development of advanced technologies goes much faster. And last but not least, and it's been said this morning already, we need to invest in knowledge. We need to keep investing in education. There is a shortage of engineers now, but if we continue like this, also in the near future, we need to start a charm offensive. Engineering isn't dull, and also working in a factory using advanced technology is a challenge for the younger generation. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our debate.
Thank you so much, Maurice. And thank you all speakers for speaking today. This is truly a great variety, I think, on this particular topic. So now I would like all speakers to turn on their cameras and microphones, as I would like us to gather for the panel discussion. I have prepared quite a lot of questions for today, but I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to ask them because we have a lot of questions coming in here from the audience, which of course is lovely. So I will just say that we will try to answer as many as possible, but we might not be able to go through them all. But please, again, keep feeding them in, as we are going to be able to work with that material going forward. So I'll start with one question that I really had at the tip of my tongue too, Frank, when I was listening to you. And this is a question from the audience asking, the 5G network security is crucial. Does Europe have a clear strategy in order to assure this? Will we be able to preserve our autonomy at the same time, was the question. But if I could just start asking you, what about the security? I mean, digital opportunities come with, it's a coin. On the other side, it's security piece. I work with security. It's a really important part. How do you see it at Ericsson?
Yeah, clearly this is one of the critical aspects if you want that technology to spread, especially in the manufacturing environment. But what we have to say first is that security is an end-to-end issue, and it covers standards, it covers product and technology, it covers architectures of the system, and it covers processes. If I take them one by one, processes, imagine you have a fantastic system, but somebody put his password on a board, then it's completely useless. So you need to write down in each industries in the manufacturing side very clear processes, and you need to educate your employees for how it works and what are the risks. When it comes to standards, if you take 5G, for instance, when we have designed 5G 10 years ago, we have put security in the core of it. So 5G is done with inside security patterns. When it comes to architecture, it means that we have to design the system that they can be resilient, redundant, and that we control the access. Here we need expert engineers, and enterprise manufacturing site need to equip themselves with some digital expert and engineers. And the last one, which is the product and technology on security. Obviously that one we can build solution, we can build firewall, we can build any type of things, but it can always be hacked and you have to counteract. So the problem of that is that it's not a question of solution, it's a question of confidence. Who do you trust? If, for instance, you have the best door on the planet, you have the best key of the door on the planet, but the one who has produced the door has made a copy of the key, your security level is 0. And we have to address this question of confidence. That's why these European 5G toolbox initiatives dealing with the high-risk vendor is of essence, and we believe it's a good tool.
Thank you, Frank. And that's like the industry view. And I would like to, the second part of this question was really around, the European strategy around security. So, Kirsten, if you wouldn't mind if I kind of ask you to follow up that question, and maybe even from a broader perspective, we talk about this, the digitalization, and how are we looking at the security aspect of that?
Well, Frank already mentioned the key element in this, which is the 5G toolbox, which is a rather innovative approach because it allows companies, but it makes a number of recommendations as which is on the processes, on the architecture, but also on the products, and which is driven by the fact we should not be completely in one hand and completely dependent. And there is a core system, and then there's the rest around it. Underlying this vision is that, we have certain rules in Europe, and we need everybody to abide by these rules. So that is the first element. We're looking, I mentioned already the revision of the Machinery Directive. Now, this is a classical single market legislation, which focuses on clean and safe and these things, but is not specific on the cyber aspects. So we will upgrade that part. That is one of the main elements of this Machinery Directive upgrade. We will also, coming back to your trust point, Frank, the question of product liability. Today we have rules that have been there for more than 20 years, and it's clear there's a presumption of conformity if you follow a European standard, a harmonized standard, and that's good. But also if something goes wrong, there is a liability for the producer. Now, in between all of this is the software update. What is that? Is that a new product? Is that the existing product? So we need to calibrate the system to make it function in the way it has been functioning. And that is also part of the trust dividend we hope to have, to encourage people, like you said, Maurice, to actually engage. Clear rules.
Thank you, and I think this is kind of a question that I'm sure we could spend quite a lot of time more discussing. But just to make sure that we cover some of the quite a big amount of questions coming here. The question here again, I would say to Kirsten is the discussion around manufacturing needs of raw material and how increase sustainability and production in Europe. What are the potential problems you see with that? That's really the question. So again, how to increase the sustainability in production when it comes to raw materials. What problems do you see there?
Well, we have, that's the good thing already, we have a European strategy for raw materials. So the point is very high on the agenda. And it's moved up the agenda because what we saw with COVID. Now, the analysis is that a number of raw materials that we need to power the transition, cobalt, lithium, is going to increase exponentially. The needs we have. And how will we cover these needs? Because if we don't cover these needs in the first place, we will have no twin transition happening at all. And so there is the, and it's all about diversification. Now you can diversify by having different channels and we're exploring that in particular. I mentioned the 80 agreements that we have with our partners. But we should also look at inside Europe. And inside Europe, and that's beautifully set out in the strategy as well, we have two elements. The first is recycling. If you know that, I believe I heard the number the other day, 40% of any product is actually material. So that's a big cost factor. If you can recycle and do it in a good way, then that saves a lot of money. And that's also the sustainable way to do it. But we're also looking at mining in Europe, because if you look around Europe, it's not that we have nothing here. We have quite a number of raw materials, but they're under the ground. So is there a point in digging them out? We say yes. Yes, because if you look where these raw materials are, they're often very close to the coal mining regions. And you know, if you put the two maps one on the other, now coal mining will stop, but that's a tremendous know-how and a very skilled workforce. So could we maybe move to other mining activities? Now, some people say mining, we should keep things as a dirty business, but that's no longer so true either, because we have precision mining supported by, in particular, our Copernicus and Galileo satellite infrastructures. So we can do a better job actually on the mining part. So recycling and maybe some very targeted mining. But then, and that's also said in the raw material strategy, it's not enough, because there is mining and then there's refining. Now on refining, we don't look very good. Actually, over the past decade, let's say, a lot of refining activity has disappeared because to very low cost refining happening, for example, in China. Now, that's also something we have to look at, and that's, for example, a discussion we have with a couple of member states when it comes to their recovery plans, to link the mining and the refining. We have one issue which is the most burning, I think, where we don't have so many solutions in Europe, is the rare magnets, the rare earth and the magnets. So that's one of the highlights, and therefore we are, I mentioned before, the Alliance on Raw Materials, which will bring together this whole chain and also the analysis of what do we need, when, in what quality. If you look at the Battery Alliance, which is one of the examples that has already been rolled out fully, by being able to understand actually the whole chain and what we needed in terms of input, the materials and how to make it actually battery fit for batteries, we've started a whole value chain in Europe. So this is the way to go. And but again, we can't go it on our own, and the regulator can't go it on their own. It's to work together with the industry on this.
Well, thank you so much, Kirsten. And I have a next question now to Radha. So this is a question around innovation. It says here, I wonder how effective funding of innovation will be. Since years, the numbers of companies doing innovation is declining, as seen by the Gini coefficient, a measure of inequality. How to overcome this? I am not kind of familiar with this particular fact, but I think the general question here is, how effective will funding on innovation be?
Well, it's a complicated question, but I'm not familiar either with the Gini coefficient. But what we can also say for sure is that the manufacturing base as percentage of GDP in Europe, but also in the world, was decreasing over time, and we saw that. When it comes to innovation, a very strong manufacturing base is driving private investment in R&D, and that is in the end what is driving also the innovation. So if we continue to decrease our value coming from manufacturing as percentage of the total value of the total GDP, we will also decrease that investment, the private investment in R&D, and that is of course not a good way. Of course, we can always compensate with public investment, and of course there are a lot of programs and instruments, and I think they are very beneficial for the company, but it's a complex question how to get the best mix of private and public investment.
Well, thank you so much, Radha. And these are really large and important questions. So I think there definitely, there will be a lot of discussions around these type of questions going forward, and hopefully as an engaged audience. My last question now, Maurice, I would just like to ask you, where does EU policy and regulation come into your daily business life, and how does it help and hinder? So do you have, as representing an SME in this debate, is it a message you would like to leave to the rest of us?
It's a very good question, Jenny. I think from a European company, we feel a lot of strength coming out of the EU. If you look at the need from companies like us to constantly develop new technologies, integrate new technologies, the EU is there, for example, by financial aid. So the need to maintain that position by helping us from a supplier's point of view, but also from a production point of view, is there within the European Commission. But as said during my presentation, I think we should start thinking of not only focusing on developing new technologies, but also on integrating them, because as said, the speed of development is going relatively fast, but yeah, we more or less forget to implement it. So again, you know, the help coming from the European Commission is great, and it's in forms like financial aid, but yeah, we need to prevent that we not fall behind in the sense of integrating.
Well, thank you so much, Maurice, for those words. And we could for sure kind of keep talking with the questions we have for another couple of hours. So I'm a bit sad that we have to break now, but we are out of time very soon. I'm not going to try to summarize today's discussion, because I think I'm going to leave the different points on their own. I think that they're really good points, and I think we should all kind of think and consider and bring them with us. I'm really delighted with the level of ambition and engagement, both from our speakers, of course, but also from our audience. Thank you so much for voting and asking questions. With this, I would really like to thank you all. I will go to close the meeting with the last snow joke. What do snowmen eat for lunch? They eat icebergs. Very funny. Again, thank you so much. This event has been recorded, so please welcome to go back and rewatch or recommend. Join our feedback survey that's also posted when you log out. And again, to all of our speakers today, a warm thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon now.